Galore. Galore is a 2009 family saga by Michael Crummey, set in a small Newfoundland fishing community of Paradise Deep. It opens with the community witnessing a mute albino man being cut out of a beached whale by the Widow Divine. This Newfoundlander Michael Crummey, this is his third novel. He's also a poet. I've read his fifth novel, The Innocents, which is about a brother and a sister in an even more isolated circumstance in historical Newfoundland. Galore is about these two feuding families. On the one side, the Widow Divine, an accused witch. On the other side, King Me Sellers, sort of the town boss, and the accuser, this strange mute albino that they christen Judah, that becomes entwined with the Widow Divine's granddaughter's life, Mary. Crummey writes these really vivid portraits of these very odd and peculiar and isolated characters. For example, King Me Seller. He is down on this beach in the opening of this book, and he's playing draughts with his grandson on an old scarred checkerboard where missing pieces are substituted for flat stones. And his grandson was the only person to sit through a game with Sellers, who was known to change the rules to suit himself and was not above cheating outright to win. He owned the board, he told the complainers, and in his mind that meant he owned the rules that governed it as well. His periodic cries of "King me" were the only human sound on the landwash as they waited. So that really captures King Me in a way. He's come to this little piece of land because he's going to impose himself. He's going to own this community, he feels, and he'll change the rules to set his own things, and he's set against the Widow Divine and much more kind of the female and the nature and the just kind of the unwillingness, stubbornness of the people to be kind of put under his boot, and maybe kind of by implication the boot of civilization. Religion comes in here, and you have warring religions between Irish Catholics and English Protestants, and how they clash, but also just how the land seems to shape things, change things. There's a defrocked priest who seems to bring his own kind of interpretation of Catholicism, and how that plays out in the community, but also kind of the terrible consequences when you are cast from this community. This is all about how this land, surrounded by sea, is a harsh, barren place where people are just barely holding on. And mixed into this is Crummey has what I guess you call magic realism. It actually feels more like the uncanny stuff, like Judah getting pulled from this whale and being alive. You have the dead instance of a dead man coming back and haunting his wife in this book. And this isn't like psychological. This is something like only the wife sees. It's like, no, the community sees this and strangely deal with it. But at the same time, you have traditions like mummers who come around masked, cloaked, and they demand their food and drink, and they inflict kind of truths that all the community knows all your secrets, and they bring them out on this kind of Christmas winter celebration, and they kind of torment people with it. And when it isn't respected, they can also there's violent, bloody retribution for not respecting this stuff, no matter how much people like King Me Sellers try to impose their will upon this. And this kind of stretches out to we have you have religion on one side, we have almost a kind of paganism on the other, we have male female relationships, and how there's this kind of charge that females are basically kind of running the lives of these men, but you kind of set that with something like Sellers, this very masculine I'm going to own the city. I'm going to own the rules. I'm going to impose myself on the city. I mean, Paradise Deep itself, someone at one point, some rather ribald soldiers think Paradise Deep to them sounds like the act of screwing, of being deep in a woman. Yet at another time, King Me Sellers is like so frustrated because it seems like this is some sort of kind of paradise, and it's deep, and he can't get at it because it's too deep. And how he hates Judah because Judah cast up from the sea, from the whale, seems to represent that unknowability that he can't kind of wrap his hands around. Now, the thing with Galore is, wow, that's the perfect title for this. Galore is a galore. There is an abundance. I mean, there is abundance of life. There's abundance of a nature that will kill these people, that isolates these people, that squashes them in. But there's also just a profusion of characters in this book. I am someone who I like a good novel with, like, it's a three-hander or four-hander, and really really talented authors. I think someone like Megan Gale Cole, another Newfoundlander who a small game hunting at the local gun club. She had like 8 characters in that book, but I could keep them all in my head. Galore is not that book. Galore is a book where there are so many bloody characters, however vividly rendered they are in their little scenes, that it's just a cascade. It's a cascade, and it's like I could not keep up with who is who and what was what. Now, the book at the beginning does actually have a family tree, which is a very handy thing to have. And if you read this book, you will find yourself flipping back and forth, trying to figure out who the hell is who. Though I'm also comforted that Crummy in the book itself has characters go, okay, who am I related to? Or am I related to them? Or outsiders going, I can't keep this in my head. And it's like, yes, you're definitely the clueless outsider who it's like, you can't make, it defies my powers to keep all those connections in my head. That is to say, obviously Crummy definitely, the author knows what he's doing. He's got that all had down. But, if you're somebody who's, maybe has, your patience is tried by such works as this, family sagas, where there's so many characters, this work might try your patience. You might love it because you love family sagas and all this, or you might be like me, and at a certain point you go, I give up. I'm just going to go along with it, and maybe I'll figure it out. But I ended up just sort of kind of letting it go. But it's like, the great thing about the work is, yes, this is a messy, complicated, yet so isolated and small that, there's genetic problems with the people here, that, recessive genes are in abundance. You have children born who age super rapidly, you web toes, all that sort of thing, which sort of in some ways adds to this whole kind of folk tale thing. I got confused with, okay, what time are we in now? Because there's sometimes it felt the novel, it's like, did we just jump ahead to the 20th century because it feels so contemporary? But that was actually still back in the 1800s that I was getting that that feel. But there's something about that which is, this is such a timeless place that has such its own peculiar way of things. I am living on the West Coast, but I can tell that the East Coast is another place entirely, another land that I would, it would be so alien to someone walking into it, so outside of your own experience. But it was just kind of amazing to be in. Now, yeah, the book does have all this kind of, it's like magic realism. And there were points in this book that I felt the magic realism as a literary thing. Like, okay, we're getting a symbol here. And it sort of interrupted what felt like kind of like the historical drama parts of the novel. Crummy does start off with a man getting pulled from a whale. And he writes it realistically, but it's a man getting pulled from a whale and being alive and being albino and mute at that. So that he puts that, it sounds like a tale that somebody would tell of, like, about how did this guy come here and what's his story. This is the story that would have gotten, the folk tale that would have gotten made. So in some ways, Crummy does manage to make that fit into the story. And the dead man haunting his wife is also something that, okay, I feel that, but I did struggle slightly. I still do that with this. I think it's because that literature does have a tendency to use fantasy elements as magic realism, as symbols, and that sometimes can feel like a big thump on the head. I think as the book went on, and I let it go with all the characters and trying to piece everything together and just sort of let it wash over me, that I was able to kind of accept that, which made the ending of the novel work for me. Now, that said, others might struggle with that, the particular ending, because it has that where we slip back into the fantastical at the end. So it's like your tolerances with family sagas, your tolerance with magic realism as kind of of the symbolic in works. You may struggle back and forth. I think at the end it won me over, and I mean, I think it also helped that I had come from The Innocents, which is very much a two-hander. It's about a brother and a sister, and how intensely Crummy was able to bring that off made me trust him for going back to an earlier novel where it's a profusion of characters. So yeah. Galore is a galore. A galore being a word that's actually borrowed from Irish, which makes sense of this Irish English community here. That galore would be the way to describe them. Describe a novel about them. All right, more videos later.